But you know, another thing that I want to mention is that, you know, I know a lot of the fashion nowadays is kind of buffoonery. You know, it's very feminine, and you know, a lot of it is just complete stupidness. You know, I mean, stupidness is not a word, but you know, it is ignorant. You know, this shit is whack. But another thing we have to realize that, you know, let kids be kids. You know, when a white kid does crazy stuff, and you know, they go out, you know, for an example, I know everybody's seen this. You've been out somewhere, you see white kids with these big long spikes in their head, like kind of like the rockers in a mohawk type of style. You'll see that, but nobody says nothing to them. You know, black folks might say, "Damn, you know, look at that shit, look at that motherfucker over there." You know, we might say little comments like that, but we don't go hard on them like we do black kids. It seems like, you know, as soon as a black kid, you know, want to wear some Timberlands, you know, have a little air in his pants, you know, maybe not extremely baggy, but you know, have a little bagginess in it. You know, have a little hip hop style. He's a danger to America. He's a thug. Oh my God, this black kid is gonna rob me. But why is it that white kids can dress and act the way they want to act, but you know, a black kid, we gotta be crucified by, you know, our fashion. It's just fashion. You know what I mean? You know, you really gotta think about this. You know, it's clothing, and you know, I think that, you know, a lot of our black children out here, you know, you gotta understand that you can't do what white people do, because not only are the white people gonna, you know, attack you, but you know, black people will too. You know, let people be them. You know, everything is a trend, everything's fashion. If you notice, every pretty much 2-3 years, fashion changes. You look at somebody like 50 Cent. When he first came out, he had the baggy jeans, I mean, you know, hood attire from head to toe. But now, you know, he's grown up. He's starting to wear, you know, the suits. You know, he's starting to be a little bit more, you know, grown manners. You know, and it just comes with maturity. You know, you can't expect, you know, a 20-year-old or 21-year-old to dress like he's 35. You know, these are the things that, you know, you really got to realize, you know, and I think we come a little bit hard, you know, on our young generation out here in their clothing. You know, a lot of it is stupid. I think it's ridiculous when, you know, you walking around with your ass hanging out. I totally agree with that, but I also understand that it's a young thing, it's fashion, and we got to let them do them. You know, and if you know, 28, you know, getting older up there in age, and you still doing a lot of that, well, that's a different story. But I mean, you know, let these kids do them. You know, it's all a direct reflection off of the music. You know, out here in LA, you know, it's not really big no more, but they had the whole jerking thing going on. And the kids who jerked, that was a hot dance out, they would wear the skinny jeans. That's where all that skinny jean stuff really originated. It was out here in LA, because that's what they were doing. You know, the high yellow ass colors with the skinny jeans on. That was the style. And it kind of just, you know, flew all through the South and all through the East Coast. But I mean, you know, we got to stop, you know, coming down hard on these kids out here. You know, it's a fashion. You know, I mean, it is what it is. But at the same time, when we do see buffoonery with a lot of our, you know, young generation out here with the fashion and everything, you know, step up and be, you know, a man in that person's life, that kid's life. You know, step up and take some responsibility within your children's life. Because that's the reason why we got a lot of this, you know, this feminine shit going on, and men, these young boys out here are dressing like little girls. That's why we have this type of stuff. But that's pretty much, you know, all I want to say. Y'all comment, subscribe, give me your feedback. Check out the Advice Show. You know, brother makes good videos. And, you know, I'm out. But, you know, let's start changing the viewpoint. You know, for y'all young black kids out there, y'all can't do everything that white people do. You know, I thought that was common sense, but you can't do it. I'm sorry, but that you can't do it. And, you know, I mean, hip hop is a part of my life. You know, I don't just listen to hip hop. It's the way I live, and it's how I move. You know, I like wearing fitted hats, chains, and everything, but I'm not ignorant with it. Like I've said before, when I walk into somebody's house, or you know, go around somebody's parent, my hat comes off. You know, I don't have my pants hanging on my. I don't wear my pants. I've never worn my pants hanging on my ass in my life, because I had better common sense than that. My parents raised me the right way. And for the black women too out there, you know, stop teaching your daughters, oh, you better get you a man with some money. Don't mess with no broke nigga. You know, stop saying that. Because what happens is that these young ladies go out into the public, they walk outside and go to school. You know, when you in the inner city, you don't see doctors, you don't see dentists all the time. You know, you don't see lawyers when you live in the hood. So who do you see that has money? It's these little characters, these clowns on TV, you know, in the hip hop, you know, all these little jokers. They're like, those are the guys, you know, who have money. So I need me a man that dressed like that. I need me a man that acts like that. I need me a man with swag. And then you got the young men out here, they watching that shit because there ain't no father in their house. They don't have any guidance. So guess what? Boom, you got two people coming together that really don't know shit. And they're both confused. And that's why you have a lot of, you know, the kids who are actually doing right, acting like, you know, they got some sense. They ain't getting no play. And it continues all the way up to adulthood. So, I mean, you know, we really got to stop this. You know, y'all start, you know, y'all women out there, start teaching your daughters to look for a man with character, a man with integrity, a man with pride, a man that's responsible, a man who's got, you know, a good head on his shoulders. That's what these little girls out here need to be looking for. Somebody who's doing the right thing and has some type of future. Not somebody that, you know, got money. Because money can be here today and gone tomorrow. It don't mean a damn thing. You don't see no U-Haul behind a hearse. So, you know, material shit is nothing. It comes and goes. But that's all I got to say. Y'all give me y'all feedback. Check out the Vibe Show. Brother makes real good videos. And I'm out, y'all. Peace.